Hi, I am Kathleen. On June 13th, 2020, my father passed away in a nursing care center. I had no idea that my father was going to pass that day. I live over 200 miles away. At the time of his passing, I was in my backyard working with my husband building an extension patio. I was wide awake, and it was the middle of the afternoon. I do not use drugs and had not been drinking. At the time my experience started, I had been shoveling gravel from the driveway into a wheelbarrow and rolling it to the back patio, where my husband would then take over the wheelbarrow to roll it down a ramp into the lower patio. This event happened during a single trip from the front yard to the back. As I describe this experience, it is coming from two perspectives. I believe there was a spirit me that experienced and witnessed the transitional event of my father's passing from this world, and there was the human me. As the human me, I am reflecting back on the spiritual experience through a lens of analysis and trying to connect the dots to make sense of what happened. During this event, the human me was pushing a wheelbarrow and has no recollection of how I moved from point A to point B. The spirit me witnessed something else. As I was rolling the wheelbarrow past the maple tree, I was out of breath. So, I stopped to take a quick break. I was standing about 5 feet from our maple tree. I recall looking up into the blue sky, feeling the warmth from the summer day. Something swept through me. A thought was spoken, what a beautiful summer day, while at the same time I was experiencing an emotion of absolute joy. A transition of some sort occurred at this point. I can only describe the feeling as pure joy sweeping through me from my back to my front. It was as if a giant smile was pasted across my face. I vaguely recall seeing some sort of golden apparition smiling back at me. A reflection? It was so quick. There was an upward lifting sensation, and I also recall the sensation of my eyes rolling up towards the top of my head. Something changed so seamlessly at this point that I did not even realize it changed. After this transition, my attention shifted to the maple tree. The tree I was standing 5 feet away from now appeared to be more than 50 feet away. The backyard appeared to be stretched or warped. Even at this moment, it never occurred to me that anything had changed or was abnormal. I didn't even question how I moved so far in an instant. There was a man with his backside facing me standing under the maple tree. At that time, I assumed he was my husband. I felt a little agitated at him because I left him in the lower patio, and I was wondering what he was doing under the tree. I looked down at his feet. He was wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and a blue t-shirt. He did not appear as an apparition or a ghost. He appeared like a young, full-bodied man. During this part of my experience, I did not realize this was my father. I was about to yell at him, "What are you doing over there?" But for some reason, I did not. At another point during this experience, I recall wanting a closer look at something, and instantly, I was both far away and being right up to the backside of his neck as if I were only inches away. I saw every single hair sticking out between the strap of the baseball cap. I can describe it as being up close while at the same time being in the distance. I honestly don't know whose hair I was looking at. My husband at the time was still in the lower patio on the opposite end of the yard. The man under the tree was obviously not my husband. I moved on to what I can only describe as the next scene. I still perceived myself as working in the backyard. In my mind, I was heading back to the front. I noticed a light coming in on the left side of this man. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh, a light is coming in." But I wasn't really impressed or didn't understand the significance of it. But I was thinking, pretty light. Then it was as if I was walking past the tree again, or my attention was redirected back to the light. This time I noticed something different about the light, like, you don't see this every day. It was a soft, white, and misty light. It shimmered as if it contained sparkles of light. There was a white clarity that is difficult to describe. I also saw colors of light pinks and blues. The light was bathing this man on his left side, and it was absolutely beautiful. I just stood there and said to myself, "Wow, that is beautiful." I wish I had a camera. It may be worth noting that the sun at this time of day was on the right side of the house, while this incredibly beautiful light was coming in on the left. What happened next was the most profound part of my experience. I saw or perceived a robed arm stretching out from this light. I say perceived because for most of my experience, I can close my eyes and revisit all the vivid details, except regarding this large arm stretching out of the light. I know I saw an arm at the time of my experience. But when I close my eyes to revisit the memory, I cannot see it except I remember the intense sparkle that occurred when the arm made contact with the backside of my father's left shoulder. It was as if a seam had opened up in my backyard and light was pouring out of it. The being emanated an intense light that was the light and was inside the light. The light was brilliant but soft. I did not see a face. At the same moment when the stretched out arm made contact with the backside of my father's left shoulder, a bright sparkle occurred. At that exact same moment, I heard a voice inside my head saying the words with the most indescribable loving intensity, "I love him." It was like an internal voice that was soft and whispering, "I love him." It was not my thought, although it felt like it came through my mind. I now understand that I was receiving telepathic communication. The overwhelming love I felt, coupled with hearing the thought, "I love him," was incredibly powerful. I experienced what I can only describe as being overwhelmed with love and awe. It was both emotional and physical. I felt as though I was tilting my head into my left shoulder in awe, as if witnessing the most innocent and beautiful thing imaginable. At the same time, my heart swelled with love. I now believe that I was truly sharing in my father's death experience in those moments. When the light being made contact with his left side, my heart on the left side literally swelled with love. I felt it as a physical sensation. My thought response, "I would never say that," stemmed from recognizing that this expression of love was not originating from me. I was confused yet spoke the truth. The love was so intense and inherently parental. I had never felt such love before, not in the same form as on Earth. The closest resemblance was the love I experienced after giving birth to my children, but this feeling was magnified. At that moment, I felt exposed and vulnerable, without boundaries or hidden aspects of myself. There was no fear, only a hint of shame which quickly dissipated. At some point, my focus shifted from my father to the light itself. I was captivated by its beauty, colors, love, and awe. I observed what appeared to be soft dandelion seeds floating and reflecting the light, perhaps insects in my backyard, dancing in the light. I also perceived something more solid within the light, a brilliant gold color with a fluid yet solid density. I was trying to comprehend what it was. Suddenly, as if moved by thought, I found myself within what I can only describe as the center of a sphere of soft, white static-like energy, akin to television snow but finer. Inside this sphere were windows, surrounded by vignettes, displaying a high-definition, hyper-real movie. In this movie, I saw the back of my father walking toward an old house in green grass. He was still dressed in jeans, a t-shirt, and a baseball cap. The man whose back faced me in my backyard was the same man I watched in this movie, a younger version of himself. As he walked toward the house, I heard the laughter of a child, with whom I emotionally connected. It felt like a memory, though not one I consciously recalled. The scene evoked the sensation of a child being chased in a game of tag. The windows surrounding the sphere were blurred, black and white, preventing me from seeing what they contained. Then, suddenly, I felt the sensation of putting down the wheelbarrow near the lower patio where I had left my husband. My vision momentarily went black but quickly returned, as if being blotted back in. There was a tugging or pulling sensation, as if soft sand was being poured into the top of my head, tickling the back of my eyes. Within seconds, my vision was fully restored, and I saw my husband where I had left him. My initial thought was, if my husband is here, then who is under the tree? I sat down on the patio, staring at the tree, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Although I couldn't quite grasp it, I felt an echo of the child's laughter and a strong sense of reality. I felt burdened, as if with gravity, trying to reconcile reality with my experience. Eventually, I shrugged it off and returned to work. Surprisingly, I was filled with energy and even outpaced my husband. As the evening wore on, we decided to call it a day. Only then did I notice the flood of messages on my phone from my siblings. I hadn't read them because, at that moment, my brother called, asking how I was coping. We spoke for a while, and later, as I reflected on the day, I remembered everything in vivid detail. I was ecstatic and began sharing my experience with my husband and other family members, repeatedly saying, "I'm not special, but I saw Dad go to heaven." This experience has left me with countless questions about life. I don't know if it was solely for me, but I do know that I'm not any more special than anyone else. We are all loved and unique. However, hearing others' experiences validated my own, reassuring me that I wasn't losing my mind or alone. Prior to this experience, and afterward, I've encountered events and dreams that I now consider guideposts or synchronicities. I now pay close attention to every aspect of my life, believing that nothing is accidental or coincidental.